Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Woo, welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we motivate, inspire, and we educate you. And man, I'll tell you what, this week we got an epic guest. I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman, and we shared the stage live in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was phenomenal, and I just really connected with him. And I'll tell you what, I want you to do yourself a favor right now. Get out your pen, get out your paper, because in this episode, you definitely want to take notes because he's going to drop some massive value. He has one of the hottest growing podcasts right now in the world, not in the country, in the world, ladies and gentlemen. So let's welcome to the stage right now to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, Mr. Craig Siegel. Woo! Let's give you a round of applause, man. Come on.
That's an unbelievable introduction, brother. I'm used to the one giving them. So to receive that, I appreciate it very much. You know how much love and respect I have for you. I'm excited, buddy.
Man, I'm excited. I'll tell you what, I drank a monster. I drank another monster, and I'm just joking. But man, I'm really excited to hear you, brother. I'm happy you just, man, I hurt your heart when we were there in Atlanta, and just kind of just everything you spoke, it spoke to me. But I know the amazing person you are. Craig, do me a favor. Introduce yourself, please, to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show.
Yes, my name is Craig Siegel. I am a performance coach, a keynote speaker, host of the record-setting podcast, the CLS Experience. I'm an expert in reinvention and reinvention yourself. And I had the opportunity, very blessed opportunity, to really find myself over the last 2 years and step into my power. And I'm becoming the best version of myself each and every single day.
Man, I love what you said. I'm going to really enjoy this episode because that's something that I teach on is identity crisis. So many of us right now in this world, we're lost. We're lost because we're doing a job that we don't love, or we're doing something because our parents said, hey, we've all heard the lie, or we've all heard the story. Craig, Daniel, why don't you go become a doctor, a lawyer? You'll be happy. You're going to make a lot of money. And then you get to the top rung and you're not happy. So explain to the audience, what do you mean by the reinvention expert? Because obviously, if you're the expert, you kind of had to go through this yourself, wouldn't you say?
That's exactly right. Yes. And essentially, I'll give you a little bit of background so I can give some context to the story. After college, I was a little bit lost in the wilderness with no compass. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was ambitious. And so, as you can imagine, being in New York, I ended up on Wall Street. It seemed like a good idea. And I was always infatuated with the stock market and stuff like that. But most importantly to this story, when I got to Wall Street was also simultaneously when I discovered personal development, the fact that we can work on ourselves, and where we're at right now is not a life sentence. It's not an indication of where we can be. We can actually revamp our mindset, change our perspective, alter what we associate pain and pleasure to, all those things. And so I started to apply those immediately. I started to develop my confidence. And I had a tremendous amount of success. And I say success in quotations because on Wall Street, at that time of my life, to me, I measured success by monetary gains and wealth. And let me just be clear, just to add some more context. Today, that is not how I define success. Today, I define success by how happy you are and how big of an impact you're making. So way back then, I was on Wall Street. I was doing my thing. And it was a lot of fun until it wasn't. As you can imagine, with the stock market, with the stress, with the unpredictability, making money is great, but ultimately it started to really suck my soul. And so I pivoted and I started a new business where I was the owner on Wall Street, but a lot less stressful, but also did not set my soul on fire.
So let me ask you this. So because you said you caught my attention. You had as your personal growth was developing on Wall Street, your perspective had a shift, or you shifted your perspective. What was the main thing as you started? All right, you came out of college, you were in the wilderness, like you said, because right now there's a lot of people in the wilderness, and the thing is, they have the wrong perspective. Is what, right? They think that their point of view is right, or they think that the world is out to get them. Whatever it may be, they might have that scarcity mindset that opportunities are short right now, but reality, it's who you are. What did you, when you started shifting your perspective and really growing and becoming this, right, in the stock market, working that, what did you really notice about your perspective that you had to change?
Just that I could develop my confidence and that I could think bigger, and there was no limitations on what I can achieve, or as I like to say, who I can become. Right. Because up
Ooh.
until that point, I didn't know that you can actually work on yourself. I didn't grow up like with self-help. I didn't know that stuff. I was never taught how to learn how to learn. And when you go to school, and maybe this is just me, I need to take accountability for it. I wasn't interested in the curriculum stuff. I personally think they should be teaching personal development and stuff like that in school. That's a whole different conversation. But I graduated and I didn't know anything. But ultimately, once I started working on my mindset, which is really the key to life, I started to understand that I can make adjustments on how I see the world and what I believe is possible for myself.
So let me ask you this. You're coming out of the wilderness. What are two value bombs that you can add right now? What did Craig do personally to kind of start really seeing himself out of that wilderness and growing? What are two action steps that somebody can take right now? Because somebody right now is listening to this, watching this, they're in the wilderness, they're stuck, and they can't get out of it, right? No matter what they do. Give us two action steps they can take, my friend.
So number one, and I want to give some more context to the stories, because we talked about being a reinvention expert, right?
Yes.
So ultimately, I started a new business, but I was drowning, Daniel. Like I wasn't having any fun. It felt like I was waking up every single day and going to a job, a job. And I know the audience has felt that to some extent at some point in their life. Straight up, I was miserable. There was a lot of stuff going on at the time. I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship. My pops was diagnosed with cancer. And it was tough to be grateful, because when you're waking up every day and doing something that's miserable, it's like, okay, I'm grateful that I'm healthy, but I tomorrow I'm doing the same thing over and over. It was like the rat race. And so at this point, I started turning to running, which became an outlet for me. And I have addictive personality. So I started running a bunch of marathons, but ultimately I was never going to be a professional runner. I was looking for an outlet. Fast forward to the pandemic, and I'm going to come full circle to all the questions that you just asked. Is at that moment when the pandemic came, I shut down my office for what I thought would be 2 weeks. And I knew that was a big opportunity for me, because I saw a lot of people doing a lot of Netflix and a lot of day drink. And I said, that's not going to be me. I had always felt guided, like very spiritually, like I hear, I speak to God, and I hear whispers and so to speak, but I was never able to identify why I'm here, what my purpose is. And for the audience listening, each and every single one of us have unique gifts. We're all here for a reason. Key to life is to figure out that reason. Pandemic happened. I took 2 actionable steps. I asked myself this: what are my passions and what are my gifts? And I really dug deep after realizing how miserable I was on Wall Street. I saw an opportunity. My gifts are my ability to communicate effectively. My passion, that one was simple. My obsession with personal development, removing limiting beliefs, altering your perspective and all that. And so I married the two, the concepts of communicating and personal development. And I started Cultivate Lasting Symphony, or my CLS brand, a little over a year ago. And I'm very humble to say it exploded. So those are 2 actionable steps that someone could take: is identify what you're really good at and what your passion is. And if you're not sure, feel free to ask 10 people that are close to you what they think you're really good at, and then collect the data. There will definitely be similarities. And then to come full circle on the word reinvention, I totally reinvented my life, because for the last 35 years, not all of them I was on Wall Street, but essentially I was always trying to find myself. And there were some dark moments where I was in emotional pain, because I knew I was meant for something else and I was stuck straight up. I reinvented myself, right, by redesigning my mindset, re-energizing my enthusiasm, and reinventing my life. And then I started CLS. And the reason why I use the word expert is because even if somebody doesn't like me, and I understand I'm not everybody's cup of tea, one thing that you can't
Well,
deny,
I like you, just to let you know for the record, I like you.
I love you, buddy. One thing that the audience can't deny is that I had one life for 35 years, right? Specifically the last 10 on Wall Street. And then I reinvented myself, and then CLS took off. We have one of the top podcasts on the planet, sponsored by Mark Cuban, 1 million downloads, keynote speaking, masterminds, coaching, all that stuff. So even if you didn't like me, you can't deny that I reinvented myself. I had one life and now I have another.
Yeah,
So
and you know what? I can relate with that, because I was in the automotive industry for 20 years. When my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, I resigned to take care of her because she got depressed on me, and my intentions were to go back to the automotive industry. But I think that's why maybe we kind of connected, is because the heart, the spirit, the same mentality, right? Likes attract like. And I remember being on the recliner, kind of like what you said, when the 2 weeks when I was watching Netflix for 2 weeks and just everything, when my wife was here on the couch, And I said, well, this isn't going to work, because I found myself getting more and more like depressed. I was getting depressed with my wife. I said, man. And then I looked in the mirror and I didn't like who I was, Craig. And I said,
I've been
man,
there.
I had, right, the 100 employees were gone. Used cars were gone. Everything that I knew was gone. And we weren't going anywhere because my wife had a double mastectomy. So the friends were gone, right? Because we weren't going out. So the phone wasn't ringing. And I think for the first time in my life, I really assessed myself. And I feel exactly what you're saying, because I wasn't happy with who I was. And I'll tell you, as a grown man, I've cried more these past 4 years. Do me a favor. I feel that I usually do this later in the show, but I think somebody needs to hear this right now, because somebody right now is not happy with who they are. They're in the wilderness and they're at the JOB, like you said, because they think that making $100,000 a year, $250,000 a year, whatever their income is, they're there because of the money. Take a moment and look into the camera and speak into their heart, because they're really, like you said, they're in their own prison. I don't know if that's exactly what you said, but you kind of made that reference. Speak to that person for a minute, if you don't mind, please.
If you're not happy, or if you're not where you want to be, forgive yourself. That's okay. We understand, like, things have happened. Not everything went exactly as according to plan. If you're not where you want to be right now, when this conversation is dropped in 2022, let it go and forgive yourself. Don't carry around all that weight. What matters most is, what are we going to do now? There's no excuses to get up and to find what does set our soul on fire. And I say that from experience, because I waited far too long. But at the same time, divine intervention, I couldn't have started CLS 2 years ago, wouldn't have worked. I had to go through my path and my journey to go through everything I went through so I can make the impact that I'm making now. So the bottom line is this: if you're stuck, if you're feeling unfulfilled and unhappy, guess what? You don't have to stay there. You don't. Like, there's always a choice. Like, and there's an expression, I didn't make it up, but it always stuck with me. Like, falling in the water is, maybe that's not your fault, but drowning is a choice, right? So we can start to swim. We can start to understand what does make us tick. What are we excited about? What does make us enthusiastic? And spoiler alert, guys, for the audience, like, you can monetize anything. You can combine making an impact and making a living. The key is to understand that where you're at now does not have to be an indication of where you're going to be for the next 20, 30 years. God willing, we don't even know if tomorrow's guaranteed. So the bottom line is this, guys: look yourself in the mirror if you're not sure, and just say this, like, why not you? Why can't you do it? You can't convince me of one particular reason as to why you can't start something that actually excites you, that helps make an impact, to put a dent in the universe. And once you change your perspective and realize that's true, now it's time to get to work, and let's figure out what does excite us. And that's really when the seas begin to part and the law of attraction comes in and the universe begins to conspire in your favor.
I love that, man. That was powerful. Circle back to a comment that you made earlier. When you started working on yourself, you said a great part of it, your personal growth, was limiting beliefs. What was one or two biggest limiting beliefs that you had to overcome to reinvent yourself to get to where you're at? Because I think so many people, we believe it. We believe it for the Craigs. We believe it for the Daniels. We believe it for the Ed Milet's. We believe it for everybody else, but we don't believe it for ourselves. What are two of the biggest limiting beliefs that you had to overcome? Because I think so many people think that it's not possible for them, when in reality it is.
Yeah, 100%. Great question, brother. I think the one that everybody can relate to in some capacity is imposter syndrome, right? Unworthiness, so to speak. And when I was going to step into CLS, people always ask me, and you were there at the event when I was being asked, and I talked about this, like, I had no experience with the online business space. I had 300 Instagram followers and 0 connections. I didn't know all these celebrities and so forth. People asked me, like, weren't you scared to step away from a stable business and step into the unknown? And I said, scared. I was petrified to go back and do something that made me absolutely miserable. And so once I changed my perception, now taking a shot at CLS was actually exciting, because I knew even if it didn't go up in a straight line, which, spoiler alert, nothing ever really does, we'll learn from it and we'll grow from it. There's no such thing as a failure as long as we apply those lessons. And so in the beginning, I had a moment of imposter syndrome. Well, who's going to listen to me, right? Or what stories do I have to tell? And then I just answered my own questions. Well, I did build 2 businesses on Wall Street from the ground up to 8-figure juggernauts. I did go from not being able to run a mile to run 4 marathons that year. So I have done stuff. And most importantly, I've been studying personal development like a lunatic for 12 years. So I have the content and I know how to communicate it. So ultimately it's this, guys, for the audience listening. It's backed by science. 75% of our thoughts over the course of the day are negative. Nobody is exempt from that. The greats, the legends, the Daniels of the world, right? They understand how to block out that interference. Now, how do you do that? It's self-awareness. So if you're ever feeling a little off, just say thank you to the universe. It's providing you feedback that right now your thoughts are disempowering. So you go in, you replace the disempowering thoughts with positive ones. You get rid of the bad ones like intruders in your house, and you put positive, constructive thoughts. Those now create new beliefs. Those beliefs create new habits. Those habits create new results. Bottom line is as follows. Any type of limiting belief that anybody has, to the audience right now that's listening, where you feel unworthy or imposter syndrome or whatever the case may be, here's the best part. You weren't born with that belief. You cultivate it over time, whether it be society, the news, your parents, the family, whatever the case may be. Just as easily as you cultivated those limiting beliefs, you can go back in and rewire by putting in positive thoughts and creating new, fresh, constructive beliefs. It's not easy, but it's simple.
I love that, man. I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, write down what he's talking about. So many times we're looking at doing the new in our lives. And what Craig is saying right here is that he didn't start from zero. So many times we want to make a shift. We want to start a new business or just make a career move, whatever it is for you. You've been trying to, God put it in your heart to go start that business and you've been scared. What he's saying is that he looked back, he reflected back. So what I want you to do right now, ladies and gentlemen, write down, reflect back on the huge wins you've had on your life. We all have one or two wins that made us. He looked back at the 2 businesses that he built, 8 figures, and that was the foundation. You're not starting from zero when you start over. It's just a new, right? It's a new division of your life, a new season.
It's
So
a new
stack
arena.
up those wins that you have and take it from there. That's what he did. He celebrated what he had.
Yeah.
He reflected.
And just to touch on that, like it's all connected, right? Like even the marathon circuit, like I'm 5'7", I'm a little stocky. I don't have a runner's body, no excuses. I understood that like, this is just a vessel that's speaking right now. Inside is a soul and a spirit having a human experience. And that soul and spirit knows no limitations. And so even like running marathons, in being a gladiator in that arena, although that's not business, it's still a mindset shift, right? It's understanding that you have confidence to step into any arena and be successful. So like you said, and I love that you said that, like, go into the good memories of the past and leverage those to whatever it is you want to do in the future.
Yeah, well, I love what you said. Think about what he just said right now, ladies and gentlemen. He took the fact that he's running marathons, he made his mindset stronger, more resilient, more determined, and he applied it into building the CLS brand, the CLS experience. We were just talking before we came on the station. I was telling them that I hired a personal trainer. Why? Because I had inside of me another level of working out, another level, but sometimes that accountability comes in and you have to hire a coach. You have to hire a trainer. You have to hire somebody to push you, because the biggest lie we've been told is I can do it by myself. You can't. And the thing is, the way you do something is the way you do everything. And I love what you said, right? Because you trained for the marathon, and I guess what? You did all this running, but that mentality gave you the momentum to crush the COS experience. Would you say so?
100%.
So, ladies and gentlemen, think about where you're at right now. Start building small wins. Maybe for you, you need to hire a trainer. Maybe for you, just need to start walking. Whatever it is for you, don't be scared of that, because Craig left one industry, Wall Street, and now he's doing his own gig over here, personal development, speaking, keynoting, and it's possible. They're hearing us right now, Craig, and they're saying, yeah, well, Daniel, Craig, I get it. So I want to be transparent here a little bit. Tell us a time in your journey where you lost your confidence and you're making this transition. And what did you learn about yourself in that moment?
So there were times in the Wall Street journey where I lost my confidence, and it was challenging to find it back, because I just didn't love what I was doing. And it's funny, and it's such a powerful question. People always ask me now, what are you on? Like, how are you always so excited and happy? And I'm like, I genuinely love this stuff. Essentially, I spent 35 years trying to find myself. And now that I stepped into alignment with my true authentic self and what I was born to do and what I'm here to do, this isn't work to me. Like I love this conversation with you, and I have a very jam-packed day after this and before this, but it's not work to me. I don't even want boundaries, because what taking boundaries from? I genuinely love this stuff. So look, the key to confidence is to do stuff that you literally enjoy. And then it's easier to build confidence, because it goes hand in hand with that. Did I lose confidence a little bit in the beginning of CLS? Look, I didn't know how the online business space works. I was definitely not an expert in the online business space, but I was so confident that I could make an impact doing this stuff, because the truth of the matter is I've been successful in the past at things that I didn't even really like some of the Wall Street stuff. And I liked running, but it didn't come natural to me. This personal development stuff, this Craig Siegel that's standing before you here today, I genuinely love this stuff. So even though I didn't know exactly how to monetize everything in the beginning, I knew that I would continue to contribute and make an impact. And I was very intentional and purposeful with my everyday commitment and actions. And the universe would supply me with some of the answers to how to monetize. And I just really believed and bought into the process. And I think if you're doing what you absolutely love, you'll have those same vibes and that same energy.
Man, I love what you just said. Actually, I just did a video on that this morning, right? So many times we want all the answers up front, ladies and gentlemen. And successful people, millionaires, they act in spite of not having all the answers. And when you allow yourself, right, when you're poor-minded, you allow yourself to say this lie to you, this belief that I need all the answers before I start.
Correct.
Think about all the people Craig wouldn't be helping right now if he had that mentality, if he was poor-minded, that scarcity, that lack, and say, well, I don't have all the answers, so why even start? No, he acted in spite of not having all the answers. And on the other side of being scared, that was the million download and the amazing success he's had. So what are you keeping yourself from right now because you're scared? Big opportunities are coming your way, and you are just self-sabotaging yourself because you tell yourself this lie, I need to have all the answers. Or maybe you're listening to your mom or your parents or your girlfriend that maybe they mean well to protect you, but they're saying, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, what if it does?
And let's take it a step deeper. Forget about the fact that like that. Why don't you put it like this? Frame it like this. If you don't share your gifts with the world, you're actually being selfish.
Boom, baby. I love that. Say that again, Craig.
If you don't share your gifts with the world, you're being selfish.
Yes. You know, I can relate with that statement you made when we started our podcast. I was doing very successful as far as speaking. When I came out in my business, people laughed at me because that was my gig. I was going to be a motivational speaker. They're like, you know how many Hispanic motivational speakers are out there? So I don't know. They go, exactly. There's none. I'm like, well, if God put the dream in my heart, I'm going to do it. And next thing you know, my big break came when I trained the United States Air Force. And then from that, I just took off and shared the stage with Les Brown and with some other people. But I say that because with all the success that I had, even though we had that, when I started my podcast, I doubted too, who's going to listen to us? And listen to what Craig said. This was my approach. And I want to get your perspective on this. My thing was, if I can help one person a day, I wasn't focused on hundreds and thousands. If I can just encourage one person with our podcast, I'm happy. And I accepted that result. And when I accepted that, God took it and blessed it. But if I wouldn't have started, I wouldn't be here with you right now.
Correct. Yeah. That's
You agree with that?
100%. And I love that you said that God put a dream in your heart. Like your dream, ladies and gentlemen, has a voice. I encourage you and challenge you to raise the volume and listen to that voice of your dream and pursue that. Because here's the deep reality. There is no guarantee. Forget about like afterlife and stuff like that. Like that's a different conversation. From this like earthly experience, tomorrow isn't even guaranteed. Let's be in a hurry. Like let's have a sense of urgency to make an impact now, to have success now, to contribute now, and listen to that dream in your heart.
Man, I love that. Turn the volume up on your dream. You should make that a quote right there. Turn the volume up on your dreams, ladies and gentlemen, by Craig Siegel right there. Let me ask you this, Craig. What keeps you consistent? What keeps you consistent on a daily basis? I understand you love it. I understand you had a full day before and you can have a full day after and every day in. But what keeps you consistent now that you're here? What is that for
The
you?
same thing I just spoke about, brother. And this is again, this might like be a little controversial. I'm motivated by death because I know that I'm not going to be here forever. And I know that every single second that goes by is 1 second that I will never get back. And I want to contribute to this world and make a gigantic impact. And I had this realization in the beginning of the pandemic when I reinvented myself, when I asked myself a really tough question. I said, like, if this was it for me, and like this was my funeral, like what would the eulogy sound like? Like what people say, like, yes, I had some good friends and some good relationships, stuff like that. But like, was I really happy with the legacy or the impact that I made? And the answer was absolutely not. And that's when I stepped into CLS. And that very concept keeps me extremely driven to this day. I'm in a hurry. I want to make an impact. And look, not everything will work out, and I can live with that. But effort and not putting in effort, and this is a little deep. Like I almost feel like it's disrespecting God. Like He gave me this dream. Like you said, like put it in my heart and has guided me. And it's my obligation to pursue it and make as big as impact as I can. And having that mentality keeps me committed and consistent each and every single day to move the chains. Doesn't mean there's going to be a touchdown every single day, but I could at least get a couple first downs.
Well, I love what you said, right? It disrespects who you were created to be. And when you said that, I thought about something. Grant Cardone said this: is if you wake up and you think you were born to be poor, and you have that belief that you're supposed to be poor, it invalidates who you were created to be. And I love that he said that. It invalidates who you're created to be, because we were created to be somebody amazing, somebody powerful, somebody to just really go out there and make a difference in the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are you holding yourself back from right now? Think about what Craig is saying here and take his advice, take his wisdom, because he's dropping some massive value, some massive wisdom right now. Craig, let me ask you this. What is the best business advice that you've received as you started your journey with CLS?
Business advice?
Yes, sir.
And also, to be honest with you, I'm taking a note right now because I just absolutely loved what you said, and that's what life's all about. In regards to, if you were born and feeling poor, you're invalidating who the creator made you. I think that's some really powerful stuff, and I appreciate that, nugget, brother. I love that. Some business advice. Look, surround yourself with great people, right? Like find people, build your sphere of influence, find people that are doing great things in the line of work or the arena and coliseum that you're looking to be a gladiator in, and pick their brain and surround yourself with them. We can't do this all alone. And the joke's on us if we think we have to. So you want to surround yourself with mentors and support systems. This way you can, I don't want to say cut the line, that's not the right phrase, but this way you could prevent some of the dummy taxes. We don't have to go through all the trials and tribulations. People have done it before, and then we're not going to be exactly them. We're going to be our own version with our own identity. But ultimately, surround yourself with great people with integrity that are already doing great stuff, where you can pick their brain and be around them. And you know the expression, if you hang out with 5 broke people, you'll be the 6th. You hang out with 5 super successful people, you'll be the 6th. So pick their brains, figure out how the business works, because ultimately it's all great to make an impact and stuff like that, but you want to combine making an impact with making a living. So you obviously have to learn how to monetize and just get strategic. But I'm a big believer in, if you build a community and you provide impact, we'll be able to monetize, no problem.
I love what you said, right? That you can monetize anything. So many of us, we don't believe that we can monetize our gift. And the truth is you can. And I think so many people, Craig, they come into business, they have a great intention. They go to an amazing conference like we did at JSD. And then all of a sudden, they're not getting the immediate results right away. So then they get impatient, and then they get distracted by everything that glitters is gold, and they lose that focus. What's something that someone can do to keep themselves, or what's your advice on something like this? Because it breaks my heart. I have a client that was going through this, and I said, look, you're focusing on too many things. You're listening to multiple streams of income. That's not you. You got to build one stream first. But they get impatient with themselves because, right, that little voice in the back of them, then somebody else saying, hey, we'll try this. And then they lose that focus. And then they end up with nothing because they're being stubborn. They're being hard-headed.
I see this all the time, brother. Too many cooks in the kitchen. 2 things. Number 1, don't forget your why. I know it's cliche, but don't forget why you're doing this in the first place. Focus on that. And then look, like, play the long game. And I always tell my clients, my students, everybody, it's all about the long game mentality. And that could scare some people. When I say long game, I don't mean 3 years. I mean, just be committed to each and every single day, showing up as the best version of you would, and just being consistent. And then all of a sudden in 3 months, it's like, whoa, look what we just created, right? So for all of you out there that are like, you don't know where to start, make a list of the best traits that the highest version of you would possess, and then chase that person each and every single day. Show up as the best version of you and stay consistent. Play that long game. And again, not 3 years, but all of a sudden, 3 to 4 months, you look back after you stay consistent and whoa, look what we built. And we're just getting warmed up. So I would encourage everyone to have the long game mentality, and don't forget your why.
I love that. I think, I mean, I love what you said there, because I see so many people that instant gratification doesn't show up and they want to quit. They want to give up. So ladies and gentlemen, don't forget your why. Listen to what he's saying. Play the long game. And it doesn't mean 10 years like he's saying. I would say this: give yourself at least 6 months to a year and give it all you have, like he's saying. Let me ask you this, Craig. What's one of the hardest things you had to challenge, you had to overcome in your life?
You know, a few months back, I was training for the Chicago Marathon. It was a big speaking engagement, and we were playing football on the beach with the boys. Never a good idea. And I ended up injuring my foot. As you know, I came home. Doctor told me I had a sprained ligament, to wear a boot for a couple of weeks. I just felt very called and guided to facilitate my own MRI. So I did so. And I came back, and the doctor called me the next week and goes, "Can you please come in?" I said, "No, I can't. I'm a little busy. Just hit me with it." I'm like, "Actually, your ligament looks pretty good, but we found a tumor on the bottom of your foot." Ultimately, that shook me up. I think it would shake up anybody. I was definitely not expecting that. Thought I had a broken foot. Then they said I had a sprained ligament. But ultimately, the old Craig of even 2 years ago would have handled this a lot differently. And when I say that, I mean like pity party, victim mentality. But I'm just in a different vibration now, a different frequency. And I know that life happens for us, not to us. In each and everything, we won't always be able to identify it right away, but we just know that each pain propels us to something greater. And so although I did feel sorry for myself for about an hour, the very next day, I started making appointments to see surgeons. I ended up getting the tumor removed, surgery, stitches, came back benign, thank God. And then ultimately is when I started really diving into the quantum and the law of attraction. And I ended up being able to run the New York City Marathon just 3 weeks after Chicago to inspire my pops, who's battling cancer, and raise money for American Cancer Society. But that was a tough pill to swallow in the beginning. But also, I wanted to bring up this story because when you have that thought process that life happens for you, not to you, there's no such big setback or challenge that could really destroy you like it once could have, because you know this is happening for a reason and there's a greater good and it's going to propel you to something greater. And ultimately, I learned so many lessons from that story arc. Shedding the ego, making about something bigger than ourselves. For example, doing it for my dad for cancer. I ended up running as fast as I ever ran in my life with zero physical training. You can't tell me that's not a quantum experience. So I think the lesson there is to understand that every pain is definitely propelling you to something greater. But ultimately, at the time when I wasn't expecting it, definitely a challenging moment for me.
I love what you said. You said the old Craig would have fallen into that victim mentality.
Yep.
So someone hears what you just said. What's the biggest thing that they could do when they say, well, Craig, man, I want to believe it. Daniel, I want to believe it, that everything that happens to me is for the good, but they're stuck in that victim mentality. What's a mindset hack that you can give us to get away and shift that filter, right? Because I believe we have these filters in our subconscious mind that from that victim, this is happening for me. What's something that you can help us to apply in our daily lives, Craig?
First and foremost is the language that you tell yourself. Something as simple as, instead of why me, try me, right? Then all of a sudden, why me makes you a victim, try me makes you a victor. So something as simple as that is changing the linguistics and the programming that you say to your mind changes how you're going to handle that and the energy you're going to put into something. And just taking full ownership and accountability. Like these days, I look forward to taking accountability for everything, even if it's really not my fault. Like, for example, I have a team that works with me now. You met some of them. If I tell them to do something and they don't do the best job, whatever the case may be, I take full accountability and ownership. What could I have done differently to have prevented that, or to help the situation? Or how can I learn from this? How can I be a better leader? Once you put yourself in that frequency where you're always accountable and you always take ownership, you can never be a victim, because you look forward to being accountable and learning from each and every experience.
I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, write this down. What Craig is saying is this: when that moment comes in and you want to fall into that pity party and you want to fall into that victim mentality and blame others and make excuses and why me, what is that inner dialogue that's going on inside of you? What movie's playing in your head? And right away, when those negative thoughts, think about what he said, 75% of our thoughts are negative. At that moment, start telling yourself, try me. I am greatness. I am success. What I would tell you right now is write down 5 affirmations that when that moment comes, when you're going to be challenged and you want to fall into that victim mentality, say, I'm stronger than this. I'm growing, right? It's not, use your mind, use your words to overcome this, ladies and gentlemen, is what Craig is saying. Man, I'm loving this, bro. Try
Same.
me, right? So when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, she said, I love that what you said, because it resonates with me. She said, why? She didn't say, why me? Why not me? And she just met it head on. But I like what you said. Try me, right? Try me. Come on, let's go. Let's dance.
That's it. Let's go. Like, look for, like, guys, like, adversity is where heroes are born. You know what I'm saying? Like, in the movies, like, does anyone really like a character that just goes up in a straight line with the adversity? Everybody loves a comeback story because it builds resilience. It builds grit. It adds character. Like, this is a little weird, but like the whole tumor thing that happened to me was actually really good for my connection with the audience, amongst many other blessings that came out of it, because they saw how I handle adversity and how I went through it, not feeling sorry for myself and understanding that and so forth. So we should lean into adversity and challenges because we have that mentality that will grow from them, and there'll be a lot of great, valuable lessons to be learned.
Man, I'm loving this conversation. What's next for Craig Siegel, my brother?
What's not next, brother? You know what I'm saying? All kidding aside, like, we're just getting warmed up. It's only been a little over a year, which is crazy. Like, some of this, you know, the juggernauts that have been on the show, like Ed Milet and Rob Deerdeck, they said to me off camera, like, I've never seen anyone explode the personal brand the way you have. And I'm very humbled by that. I think the reason it's happening is because people could see that I'm doing it for the right reasons. I'm real, raw, and authentic. And I can't speak for everyone. I could speak for you. But for me personally, I actually care. Like, I genuinely want people to win. I didn't start CLS for the money. It's true, when you step into your power and alignment and you do a really good job, the universe has no choice but to send money your way. And now I'm making more money than I ever made on Wall Street, which is ironic. It's a beautiful thing. But ultimately, I just want to continue to contribute. So grow the podcast, more keynote speaking engagements. We just had a big one yesterday. I'll be flying out to Atlanta again next week. My masterminds, my memberships, the sponsor, just impact, brother. I know it's not the sexiest answer, but just more impact.
So how does somebody get a hold of you? If somebody wants to connect with you, they're listening to this episode, man, I want to talk more to Craig, or how can they connect with you, brother?
I hang out a lot on Instagram at Craig_Siegel_CLS. You can go to our website, cultivatelastingsymphony.com, all the ways to work with us. Join the CLS membership, the CLS book club, my masterminds, all that stuff. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, the record setting, the CLS experience. And if you love daily free inspiration, join our texting community. Text the number 917-634-3796.
Awesome, brother. What is a scripture or a quote that you rely on those days of adversity, my brother? What is a scripture or a quote that you rely on, a saying that you fall back on just when those days, because those days do happen to all of us. I think sometimes people have the myth that all our days are perfect and they're not. So what is a saying you fall back on?
I'll give you two. One that when I get asked this question, it's the one that comes to mind a lot. And I mentioned it earlier in the conversation because it really has helped me a lot. It's 3 words when you look yourself in the mirror and say, why not you? Because you realize there's no reason as to why it can't be you. Another one that I heard recently that really stuck with me that I think you're going to get a kick out of is this. I don't believe in God. I know God.
I love that, man. I don't believe in God. I know God. Boom, baby. Come on. I love it. I love it. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig just dropped some massive wisdom, reach out to this gentleman. He's real. He's authentic. And my big takeaway from Greg is just really, right? Think about what he said. those times of adversity, when you feel like you're losing and you feel like, man, I'm called to more, reinvent yourself. Look back at the huge wins, reflect, spend a morning off Facebook, off Instagram, just by yourself and God. Look at your big wins that you had in the past, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and use that momentum to push you forward and get out of your comfort zone. And man, I just want to thank you for being here with us, Craig. This was an amazing episode. I appreciate you, brother. And man, any parting words of wisdom before we end the show, brother?
Yeah, I just want to say something to you, brother. You and I connected right away. It's obvious why. This conversation was straight up awesome. You energize me, brother. I love and respect you, and you challenge me, which I really appreciate. I like to be challenged and ask good, thought-provoking questions. And I know that anybody that listens to this episode is going to get some value if you apply it, like you said earlier in the conversation. But the coolest thing about me and you is, and what excites me the most is it's just the beginning of the friendship.
Man, well, I appreciate you, brother, and I love you, and thank you for taking time to just add value to our audience here. It's an amazing, and this is just the beginning, brother. So, ladies and gentlemen, woo! That's a wrap for this week's episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. Man, my head is just pounding with all the wisdom that I just got. Join us next week here for another amazing guest. If you're stuck in life, if you're stuck in business, go to danielgomezglobal.com. Go to danielgomezglobal.com. We want to give you a free entrepreneur assessment and our complimentary discovery session for 45 minutes. We want to help you. And also, if you're an aspiring speaker, Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, we're having it March 11th and 12th here in San Antonio, Texas. And again, August 26th and 27th, where we want to help you get paid to speak, because I'll tell you what, the world deserves to hear your story. Once again, that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.